Привет, друзья! Welcome to Russian Readers, and today we're starting our new series on Russian cases. And as you may remember from my introductory video, or maybe you know it by yourselves, Russian has 6 grammar cases, which sounds pretty intimidating, especially to those of you whose first language is English or Spanish or other languages that essentially have no grammar cases. But don't worry, guys, we will make a lot of videos in which we will break down all the cases on a case-by-case basis, pun intended. And today we're starting with the easiest case there is, which is the nominative case. And well, I have good news for you. The nominative case is not really much of a case. I mean, there's nothing much to learn about it because it's the so-called as-is case or the dictionary case, right? So this is the case you would find most nouns or all Russian nouns in when you just learn them, as is. Maybe you look them up in a dictionary or you just, make flashcards. So this is the case that you put your noun in the initial form or the dictionary form or the as-is form. So when would you use the nominative case? Well, first of all, you use it when you introduce something, right? You simply state the existence of something, right? For example, you say, this is a car, right? In Russian, you would say, это машина, right? So the word машина is the as-is form, which is the nominative case, right? Or for example, you're introducing a person, это мой брат, right? So мой брат would be in the nominative case. You also put your nouns in the nominative case when it's the subject in the sentence, right? For example, you say, my car is white, right? So my car in this case is the subject, right? So again, you would say, моя машина белая. And белая being the adjective, by the way, is also in the nominative case. Or again, when a person is the subject of the sentence, for example, мой брат работает в Торонто, right? My brother works in Toronto. Мой брат would be in the nominative case. And then finally, you use the nominative case when there is something, right? Something is out there, right? Or when you have something, right? And that's a little tricky, right? Because in English, you say, I have a car, and that sounds like, a car is your direct object, right? But in Russian, we use the phrase у меня есть, which literally means on me there is, and then after there is, you always use the nominative case. Yeah, there is in Russian is есть, there is or there are, right? So у меня есть машина, I have a car, or literally on me or in my possession there is a car, and again, машина would be in the nominative case. Or if you say, в Колорадо есть горы, there are mountains in Colorado, right? So again, горы would be the nominative case. And well, since there isn't much to learn about the nominative case per se, right, I thought maybe I would teach you a little more about the plural form, right? Because obviously the nominative case has the plural form, which again is the as-is form, and then occasionally you put nouns in the plural form. The Russian plural is pretty straightforward, but there are some nuances, so let's look at them. And, well, as you probably know, most Russian nouns in the plural take y or e. I don't have the exact statistics, but I would say probably 90+% of Russian nouns do that for the plural, maybe more, right? So you put either an y or an e on the end of a noun when you put it in the plural, and if your noun ends in a consonant, you simply add y or e. But if it ends in a vowel, then most often you just replace that vowel with an y or e. For example, the word телефон ends in a consonant, so in the plural you simply add y. Телефоны is the plural, phones. And the word, for example, машина, car, right? It ends in a vowel, so you replace that vowel with an y. So машина in the plural becomes машины. So, when is it an e? When is it an y? The rule is a little tedious to memorize, but once you memorize, it's pretty straightforward, right? So you always put an y unless the last consonant in your noun is one of the following consonants. So, k, g, х, ж, sh, ch, sh. All right, so if you have one of those as the last consonant of your noun, then you must apply the E in the plural. In all the other cases, you apply the I. For example, in the word машина, the last consonant is an N, right? So it's not one of those 7 consonants that would take an E. That's why for машина, the plural is an I, машины. Same with, for example, журнал, журналы, or газета, газеты. And then, for example, книга, right? Книга, the last consonant is a G, so it is one of the 7 consonants, so you apply the E. Книги. Another example is яблоко. The last consonant is K, so it's яблоки. Лыжи, skis, right? Лыжи. And вещи, things, for example, right? They all take the E. Although usually I tell my students that really and truly it doesn't matter whether you put an I or an E, especially if you're a lower level student, because they're kind of similar sounds, right? I and E, they sound pretty similar. So chances are, even if you apply the wrong plural, especially in your speech, when you speak, Russians most likely just think that it's your accent. You know, it's not like you applied the wrong ending, maybe you just mispronounced it. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. Just put an I or an E, and most of the time you will sound just fine. However, there are a bunch of nouns in Russian that take A as the plural. And it's so common that I can't even call it an exception, you know, because there are actually a lot of nouns that take the A. Again, I don't have the statistics, but, you know, I would say probably at least 5 or 10% of Russian nouns, maybe more, take the A. And there are a lot of common words that do that. A or sometimes ya. Again, it depends on the pronunciation or the last consonant, but most of the time it's an A. So let's look at some examples. So, dom, pretty common word, right? Дома is the plural. And most of the time you actually stress at A or stress at ya, right? Глаз, eye, глаза, eyes, вечер, evening, вечера, evenings, поезд, train, поезда, trains, облако, a cloud, облака, clouds, учитель, teacher, учителя, teachers, доктор, doctor, доктора, doctors, and many more. And beware that some Russian nouns that would be singular in English or perhaps, you know, many other languages, they're actually plural in Russian. So just something you have to memorize. Doesn't really make much sense sometimes. So let me give you a couple examples. The most common examples that come to mind are деньги. So деньги is money. In English it's singular, but in Russian it's plural, right? So you use it as a plural noun and it doesn't really have a singular form, деньги. And then another common example is часы. Часы means a watch, like a wristwatch or a clock. It's the same word. Часы kind of makes sense because часы literally means hours. You know, час is an hour. But still, you know, if you're talking about a single clock or a single watch that you wear, it's a little weird that it's plural. But in Russian it is plural, so you have to agree it with, you know, plural adjectives, plural verb forms, etc. And of course there are a lot of nouns in Russian that have irregular plurals that you just have to memorize them. Let me give you a few common examples that I recommend that you memorize because they're very common. So друг, a friend, друзья, friends, okay, брат, brother, братья, brothers, сестра, sister, сестры, so you add the dots, you know, ye changes to yo, сестры for sisters, сын, that's a really weird one, a son, сыновья, sons, okay, and then стул, pretty common word, right, a chair would be стулья in the plural, chairs. Be careful though, because a very similar word, stol, which means desk or table, has a regular plural, столы. So stol, столы, but стул, стулья. And another common example is дерево, a tree. Plural would be деревья, trees. And as you can see, oftentimes the stress shifts as well. Okay guys, this is pretty much everything I wanted to share in this video regarding the nominative case. Of course, there's a little more to it. For example, noun adjective agreement in different genders and plural, but we can make another video about it. In this video I just wanted to tell you about the nominative case, what it is about, and of course a few things about the plural, because that is part of the nominative as well. I hope you liked this video. If you have any questions, please be sure to post them in the comment section. Be sure to like this video and share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel and subscribe to our app. We have a lot of helpful stories, including grammar guides that can help you learn more about cases in a natural way by reading stories with pictures and highlighted narration and interlinear translation. So we'll be happy to see you in our app. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in our next video. Спасибо и всем пока.